we should be having a long discussion right now about the Clemson Tigers and their state of their football program, but this is probably going to be one of my shorter videos, honestly, reacting to a Clemson loss or win, because it feels like summing this all up is going to be much easier than some of the other games, because I don't think, even after scoring that late touchdown, I never really felt like Clemson was going to win this game after the second quarter. Once we hit the end of the second quarter, I didn't feel like Clemson was going to win this game at all. There was just no reason to feel that way. So let's just go over the game real quickly. Let's talk about some stuff. Matt Bockhurst getting hurt very early in the game. I think it was the first quarter, maybe early in the second quarter. Stinks. That's a guy who I actually had biology with freshman year in college. So I think he's in his fifth year now, I believe. So he might be done for this year. I don't know exactly how many years of eligibility he has left, but him getting hurt early on just kind of shows you how the season's been going for Clemson. All these injuries piling up on both sides of the ball, especially on defense, to the point now that our defense is giving up more points per game than we're used to. Part of that is also defensive personnel making mistakes. It's also partially because Pittsburgh has a good offense right now. But injuries certainly play a role in the whole scenario. The big thing, DJ finally gets benched. He's just performing so poorly. He had an interception early on in the game. We were driving to Pittsburgh territory. He throws a pick. And then he does this, I think it was a shovel pass. And it gets picked off and goes the other way because he just doesn't even look directly in front of him. There's a defensive player standing in front of him. He just throws him. He just basically flips on the ball and go right ahead. And then the guy sprints the other way for 6. I mean, at that point, the game is lost, both from a realistic standpoint in scoring and also from just a more, not moral standpoint, from a, what's the word I'm looking for? Morale standpoint. There we go. Because there's just no way to come back from that. You just can't. It's too embarrassing. It's too much of a mistake. And I understand that you should be able to come back from that. But these are human beings we're talking about. These are college kids. Now, something like that, you're not going to get over that in a couple of minutes. And you'll say, well, all-time greats. Well, yeah, but DJ Uiagalelei, listen, he's not an all-time great. And understand that we said the excuse for DJ early on in the year was he's all the talent in the world. And we said that based on what we know about him getting recruited and based on what he did last year against Boston College and Notre Dame. Does he have all the talent in the world? It's a legitimate question to ask at this point in time, based on how he performed today. Now, granted, 12 for 25 completions and pass attempts. Certainly not all his fault. There are at least 5 drops in there. There might even be 10 drops in there, based on what I saw today. No, the drop problem has been so egregious for Clemson this year. It's ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen a team in football, in my years as a football fan, for the NFL, for college, for all this stuff, I don't think I've ever seen a team drop the ball as consistently as Clemson has during the opening weeks of the season. I say the opening weeks, we're already at the midpoint, basically. And Clemson's going to be 4-3, and 3-2 in conference. So they're not going to win the ACC this year, basically. It would take a total collapse of NC State, Pittsburgh, all these other schools to just let Clemson win the ACC. That's not going to happen. Especially with the way Pittsburgh's playing. Although they lost, I think, Western Michigan's their one loss this year, which, after what I saw today, it doesn't make any sense to me, but I guess it happened somehow. Kenny Pickett's a good quarterback. At least a good college quarterback. We'll see about the pro thing. We'll see about this whole Heisman conversation. He, at least right now, is a very, very good college quarterback, performing at a very high level. So you can kind of put a little bit of that, a little bit of the 27 points they scored on Clemson's defense on the fact that Pittsburgh just has a really good offense. You know, with Jordan Addison at wide receiver, I think he's a second-year guy, sophomore, who's really good right now. Kenny Pickett having a career year, like a breakout career year right now. It's just a very good offense. And Clemson's defense is usually pretty good, but this is not the same defense that held Georgia to however many points they had in the first game. This is not that defense. We're missing a lot of guys from that unit. It's totally different right now. And this is not the same Clemson team that faced Georgia in week 1. You see, last week when I said, or 2 weeks ago at this point, I don't know what it was right now, but when I said Clemson did not deserve to be ranked, because they weren't ranked. I said Clemson did not deserve to be ranked. They were not a top 25 team. When I said that, I had a couple of people come out and point to the Georgia game and say, how could you possibly say that? You know, they lost to NC State, and they were close with Georgia. Guys, if you watch today's game, and you're trying to tell me that this Clemson team deserves to be a top 25 team, you just don't know football. No, that's about it. I don't like saying that. I don't like saying those kind of, that's a Twitter argument. I shouldn't be using that kind of logic. If you think this team is a top 25 team, I really would love to know what your logic is, because I don't see anything on this team that's redeeming right now. The defense in itself, which is supposed to be the talent of this unit, gave up 27 points against a fairly good offense, one of the better offenses in the country. I understand that 27 against one of the better offenses in the country is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not great either. This is not the defense that played Georgia. And Kenny Pickett is better than JT Daniels. And Jordan Addison is better than any wide receiver that Georgia had that day. So, the defense in itself, I'm just labeling it as injured. It's kind of broken down at this point. It's a mid-level defense, in my opinion, or maybe a little bit of the upper mid-level defenses because they are still really talented when the guys are healthy. But they're not getting as consistent pressure as I expected. Myles Murphy has not been as disruptive this year as I hoped he would be. Andrew Booth, while still a very good cornerback, who's going to be a first-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, he makes one big mistake every game. I find him, or I watch him end up on his knees or sliding around the field, kind of tumbling off his feet a little bit, at least once every game in coverage. He just, for whatever reason, stumbles, falls down, and it's a big play. That happened in this game. So Andrew Booth, even though he's a great player, always has that one mistake every game, it feels like, that just burns Clemson significantly. Despite the fact that he chucked a wide receiver trying to block for a guy. Maybe it was a wide receiver screen early in the game. He just absolutely chucked the blocker, which I love to see. But Booth does have those mistakes every game. And then, of course, we get to the point where DJ gets pulled in the third quarter. And Tyson Fomachan comes in. Fomachan. I'm still trying to figure out how to say the last name and say it as well as possible. But he comes in. And he does, well, not much. 3 for 7, 23 yards. The offense just is not moving the ball at all. He's a bit better of a running quarterback than DJ is, I will say that. Even though DJ, I think, had more yards, obviously, rushing this game. I think Tyson's faster than him. I think that showed a little bit. But DJ eventually comes back in the fourth quarter, and just over in just a minute and a half long, Clemson drives down, scores the touchdown. And it's like, wow, this is the offense we've been waiting to see. The one drive they had in the first quarter and the drive they had in the fourth quarter, Clemson gets maybe one or two of those drives each week. And that's it. The offense does not play that well for the rest of the game. They have one or two drives like that every single week. And that is it. That's all they get offensively. And it's mind-blowing. Like, you come in and you do it at will for 2 drives every week. But you can't do it consistently for whatever reason. You'll go 3 and out. You'll end up at 3rd and 10 somehow. And you have to punt the ball away on 4th and 5 or 4th and 7. Consistently. It's pretty easy to predict how many third downs you're going to run to. How many third longs you're going to have every week. A lot. And you'll have 1 or 2 drives where everything just clicks. And then it will never work the rest of the game. It is shocking to me. I don't think I've ever seen a team this dysfunctional from an on-field perspective. I really don't. I don't think I've ever seen a team, or maybe that's incorrect. Maybe I've never rooted for a team this dysfunctional from an on-field perspective. I think that's probably more realistic. But, I mean, really, it's just insane that Justin Maskell at the end of the game, I don't understand taking the helmet off and not really throwing the helmet down, but taking the helmet off and dropping the helmet down and yelling, obviously, get a defensive stop. But then, of course, you're going to get penalized for that. You're not allowed to do that. It's such a boneheaded move from a guy who's a pretty good football player. So, the whole game is just Clemson shooting itself in the foot. I mean, the Will Shipley drop, I forget if Clemson was up 7-7 at that point, or if it was 7. I forget if it was 7-7 or 7-0 at that point. But Will Shipley streaking wide open down the field. It's going to be a touchdown. He catches the ball. And he just drops it. And I understand he's a running back. But this is a guy who I think some people comp to Christian McCaffrey coming out of high school or going into college. So you expect the hands to be there. You don't expect him to catch everything. But you can't drop that pass. You just can't. You need that. Clemson's offense does not create that many opportunities to the point where you can drop a pass like that. Last year, sure. Last year, you would score 35, 42 points in this game. So you'd be fine. Not this year. It's not going to work that way. And the offensive line obviously got pushed around quite a bit. They gave up quite a few sacks in this game. A lot of pressure on DJ specifically. And DJ's never been... While DJ can run, and he's a threat to run, he's never been the most mobile guy in the pocket. Trevor Lawrence was certainly better at moving in the pocket than DJ. And DJ's not that fast. He's not going to necessarily out-sprint some defensive lineman coming after him or a linebacker coming after him. So, just another issue to address. Justin Ross. These Clemson wide receivers, when we had Justin Ross, prime Justin Ross, and T. Higgins, Clemson was winning about 60 to 70% of the 50-50 balls that ended up in the air. This year, I swear they're winning probably 30%, maybe 20% of the 50-50 balls DJ throws up. Ross is not winning those, or even they hit him in the hands, he's dropping them a lot of times. Joe had dropped this game, I'm pretty sure, on a 50-50 ball. He should have won. It's a mess. And I know Joe's the guy I didn't dress because I think he's in the COVID protocol, I believe. And Frank Latson was injured, so you're missing 2 of your top 3 or 4 guys. What are you supposed to do? I just don't get it. And again, all these drops, like I said, it's not all on DJ. Yes, he has some terrible ball placement at times. And yes, he's made some terrible decisions and has some bad ball security. But you can't account it. If there's like 5+ drops, 5 to 10 drops in a game, it's hard to blame DJ for all that. Now, granted, I can totally blame him for the shovel pass to turn to 6 points. It's absolutely 100% his fault. But, with some of the other stuff, not so much. I didn't have as many notes for this video as I did for the other one, so I don't have really a way to go about this in a structured format. I'm just kind of going based on what I can remember, based on what I wrote down. Trenton Simpson had a sack earlier in the game. We had a couple sacks this game. I don't have the stats yet. They haven't loaded in yet for the defensive side of the ball. But we had a couple sacks, a couple pressures this game. Nothing too ridiculous. I think Pittsburgh certainly had more pressures and sacks than we did, or at least it felt like that watching the game. The running game for us, 164 rushing yards. 50 of those came from DJ. Tyson had 15 of them. I mean, it's not a bad performance on the ground. It's not great either, but it's not bad. It's just the air tag. It's the passing game at this point. And the defense, the defense is what it is, and it's not the defense's fault necessarily. It's just all the injuries piling up. You can't go through the losses of talent that we've had at this point and just expect to fully recover. That and the guys transferring out, the transfer portal has made a dent in some places as well. Losing guys like Darion Kendrick, who I know is kind of leaving the program anyways, Mike Jones Jr., just leaving experienced players like that who are good. Losing those guys really hurts. So between transfer portal and the injuries, the defense just is what it is at this point. And I'm willing to accept that. But I'm not willing to accept this as offense. This offense should absolutely be better than this. So, the offense, DJ, Tyson, whoever we're going to see, I'm expecting it to still be DJ, considering what Tyson looked like. I grant Tyson does not have a full week of prep as a starter. Maybe we'll see that in the future. But just from the glimpses we've seen of Tyson over the past year, going back to last season too, I would not bet on him being able to replace DJ and be a better option at quarterback. I wouldn't bet on that. But I wouldn't bet on either of these guys being the star next year at this point anyways, based on what we've seen so far. So, as far as I'm concerned with Clemson, the season's over. But the season was basically already over after losing to NC State. Most people just weren't willing to accept it because they still would argue that Clemson belonged in the top 25, even though if you watch the team play, they clearly weren't top 25. But it's all right. Now, I don't have to make the argument because everyone's just going to willingly accept it because it's the truth. A 4-3 Clemson team, even though they've lost to 3 ranked opponents, you lose to Pittsburgh and NC State and a Georgia team, like that didn't have any wide receivers that game, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to frame them as a top 25 team. And I don't view them as a top 25 team. I haven't in a couple of weeks. So, what does Clemson do now the rest of the year? That's a good question. I'm not really sure. Just try to salvage it. Just don't lose to FSU, for the love of God. Just don't lose to FSU next week, please. I don't think I can deal with that. That is a game on ESPN, so we'll actually get to see that game. But Clemson plays FSU next week. Then it's Louisville, UConn. It's UConn, Connecticut, same thing. Who else we got? Final 2 games, Wake Forest. Wake's been pretty good recently. Although they almost lost to, was it Army today? They almost lost to one of the service schools today, I believe. And then you finish with South Carolina. Don't expect, maybe you'll get a bowl game, but don't expect any kind of playoff team for the ACC. I don't even know if they're going to beat South Carolina. I really don't. Granted, South Carolina's not a very good program, but I really don't. South Carolina plays Texas A&M, Florida, Mizzou, Auburn for Clemson. All right, they're going to lose quite a few games on that stretch, but I don't know. I just have no faith in this Clemson team at this point. I just don't, because they keep hurting themselves. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. There's no discipline right now. I just don't know what else to say. Just leave it at that. Very disappointing game. Not a very surprising outcome. Just a very disappointing game overall. Offense continues to be painful to watch. Defense is continuously hurt. Offensive line as well. But, It'll be interesting to see what happens this offseason to adjust this. And I better see some transfers coming in because every other school is doing it. Ohio State's doing it. Alabama's doing it. Let's just have it happen. Please, Dabo. A few transfers in would be nice. But for now, I've got nothing else to add. Talk to you guys tomorrow.